Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to week 30 of 2022 and my weekly reading wrap up. So we're back to another week where I think I read 10 books, but I still feel fully happy and confident that my slump is over. I think I've just found kind of a new normal where my reading pace is about 10 books a week. And I'm okay with that. I'll just, kind of recalibrate it. I still know that that is way better, or better is the wrong term. I still know that is very good for me and a good pace to be reading at. Also, I read quite a few bigger books and I didn't listen to many audiobooks. I think there was only 2.5 audiobooks. So that's always a big part of it as well, is that since I've been working from home, I just don't listen to as many audiobooks. It's kind of interesting because I still love them. I just find that I've been watching a lot more YouTube. I've talked about this. I watch a lot more YouTube now than books. And I do still read while I do that. But anyway, we're taking too long. First off, I do want to give a big thank you to all my channel members and patrons who support me. We're going into the 4th month of Patreon, and I continue to feel so blessed for what y'all have blessed me with. And there's nobody new this week to talk about. There were some upgrades and people finding more ways to support me, which is awesome. But I still always want to give them their due every week. And as we go into August, which is crazy, we do have next week there will be the Romance Takeover Readathon. So every book that I read for that is going to count into that. So there will be a vlog that goes up, but I'll try not to do a wrap up in the vlog so that this can be kind of a separate thing. But also when I vlog, it's not always just focused on the books. I have my first kind of brand partnership, kind of, that I'm going to talk about in the vlog, and I've showed pictures of it already, and I'm super excited to do kind of a little ad for them. I don't know. I'm making it like a production that I'm really excited about because, well, this isn't like a sponsorship where I'm going to get commission or anything. They sent me a gorgeous product and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So that's going to be in the vlog, since I don't really have it where it fits into my content to just all of a sudden talk about that in one of these. And I told them that when they reached out. I was like, well, I have a vlog coming up, I can put it in, but I don't really just do ads for stuff yet. But maybe that will change, if this leads to me actually getting some commission stuff or paid things, that obviously would be very helpful. But as always, I've shared with you, I've said no to many, many things over the years because I want to keep my channel as pure to books as I can and as focused on that as I can without, and I don't like to say sell out, to find things that match what the channel is, you know what I mean? So, I've been reached out to by tons of weight loss things and gym things and VPN stuff, and I know that some people find a way to work that into their content, but for me it just doesn't make a ton of sense because I don't use any of that. But anyway, I've literally just spent 4 minutes rambling about that, but let's go ahead and dive into these books we have to talk about. As always, I'll be looking down a little bit here because I have my notes are always on my Chromebook, which just helps me remember character names and triggers and all those things. So the first thing that I finished last week was Shadows of the Past, and this is a Lucius and Hermione fic, and it's by Snape's Goddess. And I actually have read now all of the full-length fics by Snape's Goddess. I just really like how they write their fics. And they've had some in, they've had both Severus and Hermione and Lucius and Hermione. And I think there's a Draco and Hermione, but I don't know if but all the ones that are full length I've read, I just like how they do it. And this one was a very soft and sweet surprise pregnancy romance. So this one was The night of the Battle of Hogwarts, Hermione and Lucius have this encounter. He feels like he takes advantage of her, and I won't say that he doesn't, but in his mind, he sees what he did as assault, and in Hermione's mind, she sees it as a moment of hurt comfort for the both of them. And so he ends up, you know, going to Azkaban that night, and they don't see each other for, I think he's gone, like, is it 5 or 10 years? I think it's 5. I don't think he has to go for too long because of reasons or whatever. But either way, I can't remember if it's 5 or 10, but I think the kid is like 4. So yeah, it would be 5 years. And when he gets out, he is confused by the fact that there was never a rape charge to add on to his charges, because he fully expected her to press charges, and he wouldn't have been upset if she did that because he feels like he deserved it. But she didn't, because for her, in a strange way, it was a hurt comfort moment too. So when he gets out, he tracks her down because he wants to apologize in person and also kind of question her, like, why didn't you seek justice for what I did? And he shows up at her house and realizes why. That she has a little boy named, I think his name is Elias. And then this begins them, he wants to be involved in this kid's life. He feels like he really missed out on that with Draco because he wasn't a present father. And then it leads into them like dating too. So it was a really soft and sweet one. I enjoy those now and then as much as I love the really crazy dark ones as well. And so yeah, this one was a one-night stand, a surprise pregnancy. It's an age gap. I gave it 4 stars because, as sometimes can happen when they are softer or sweeter, there just was like, you know, there wasn't a ton of conflict because this one's just supposed to be sweet and relaxing in a way, right? But it was also then like missing some of the like, I don't know, plot that I would have liked. So I gave this 4 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale for me. It was really good once it got going. It was a slow burn. And then the trigger warning is, it's at least dubious consent, but Hermione herself very strongly doesn't feel like it's assault. She repeats that over and over, but the author puts those tags that there's dubious consent, so I'm telling you about them. Next, I decided I wanted to read another fic bind up, and I had been sent this beautiful bind up from Mel, Mel Binds Fics, who has sent me all of the fics that I have except for one. And this one was just a cute, she asked if I would like this. It's kind of a little spicy bind up from Sinlin Yu, who did Manacled, and then the illustrator of Manacled is Alethian. They do a lot of fan art and character art. Like, I even have, I think, some Sarah J. Maas art that's by her too, but this was just a little short. It had literally like 10 different stories, but there are lots of like illustrations in it and everything. Some of them very like romantic, and some of them really spicy. So this was fun. It's like very disjointed, and it's one of those things why like shorts aren't really for me, but I love that Mel bound this for me, and you know, it's a gorgeous thing to add to my collection, and the art is absolutely beautiful. So like, I gave it 4 stars because it is what it's supposed to be. So yeah, there's all these different Draco and Hermione pairings in here, and it's fun, but it also only took like an hour and a half to get through, and it is what it is. So I gave it 4 stars, and yeah, there's varying spice levels throughout the whole thing. Then I read another 6-star read for me, which was amazing, and I'm very interested to see how this book just came out on the 22nd, and I didn't really think it too much. Like, I just dived into it because I know a lot of people love other books by this author, but I've been super intimidated by them. In fact, I'm going to be making a video about books I'm intimidated by, and those books are on it. But I'm a little more willing to read them now after reading this one. But this was so unique to me. Anyway, I've said it enough. I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton, and yeah, they also wrote the Haunting and Hunting Adelaide the cat and mouse duet, and I've had tons and tons of recommendations for that, but I've just been hesitant because I'd never read anything by this author before, right? And they write very big books and they're very dark books, and so I was nervous because I know I'm the dark romance queen, but even I can get a little nervous about like what the story for it will be. So this book though, like, it is a dark romance, it is, but funnily enough, I've had a lot of people who want to put this on their TBR for the light versus dark romance takeover. And I was struggling to find prompts that match it, because most of the prompts that match this one are on the light board, funnily enough, because it's a one night stand, it's forced proximity, it is like the age gap really, like, there isn't really an age gap in this, because to me, like, they're 28 and 34, so age gap is kind of meaningless to this, but it is definitely a dark tone. Like, this has like thriller aspects, this has some horror aspects, it has a mystery, it has romantic suspense, but it all starts as kind of like it's headed towards being a revenge romance, because our heroine, she is a grifter and a like trickster, and what she does, she's on the run, so yeah, there is some pity for her and like what's going on, but like she's on the run from something, like we don't fully know. We know it has to do with her twin brother, but that's all we know at the beginning. And what she does is she has one night stands with men, and she steals their identity and then like steals money from them and uses it to keep running. And she's found herself in Australia, and she has a one night stand with, her name is Sawyer, by the way. She has a one night stand with this marine biologist named Enzo, who he's Italian, and there's a lot of Italian used in this, and it's pretty hot. And they have this one night stand, and she steals his identity. But the thing is, she really likes this town that she's staying in, so she doesn't leave right away. And so I can't remember if it's just, I think it's a couple weeks later, because she's been able to like get a fake credit card using his name and all this stuff, and like he knows that she did that, but he hasn't turned her in yet. And then they run across each other again, and he decides he wants to teach her a lesson. So he invites her out on his boat, which, again, he's a marine biologist, specifically, he looks into sharks, and he will like swim with sharks, and like even like rides sharks in here sometimes, which, you know, it's not the healthiest thing to do, but that's not what we're about. And he does something to, like, for some reason she gets on this boat with him because she thinks he's forgiven her or whatever. He's able to make her believe that, and then they have sex in a very interesting way. Like, I really don't want to spoil this because, like, it was amazing. Like, it involved breath play and danger banging, so we'll put that out there. It's like there are definitely a lot of triggers for this book. And so she realizes she's in over her head, and it's unclear like what he's fully going to do with her, even though like we have this danger bang where he like threatens to kill her while they're fucking, and then like they're just sitting there like annoyed with each other, and there's a storm coming in, and he made a mistake because he took her out on this boat because he was pissed, but he didn't read the weather. There's a storm that comes through, and they end up getting shipwrecked, and they get shipwrecked onto this tiny little island that has a lighthouse, and they're stuck there because there is a lighthouse keeper, but technically this isn't like an up and running like thing anymore. So like the lighthouse doesn't get used anymore because it's modern times. People use their radar. They don't really use lighthouses anymore, but he still lives there, and he has his reasons. He says his family was here, now his family has died or is gone, and it's just him. Sketchy vibes about him. So we have Sawyer and Enzo, who are enemies at this point. Enzo wants revenge against her for what she's done. She's pissed at him because he almost just killed her while they were fucking. And they're stuck on this island with this crazy guy. So they're this setup for this thriller. And I just, when it was done, when it all works out, when we see, because there is an HEA, when we find out everything, I was shooketh, okay? And it's one of those where, do I think it was perfect? No. Does it take a lot of you need to suspend your disbelief, yes, but so do a lot of dark romances and a lot of stuff. But if you really like horror, but you don't like it super gory, like there's not a ton of gory. There's, at the very end, there are some specific nasty things that you could like flip a page and then be past type of thing. But if you like the suspense, but you still want the romance to be very much the center, like, I don't know, it was all there for me. So when I was done with it, it's that kind of book where I finished and I'm like, I have to give this 6 stars because I'm never going to forget it. I don't know if it will hold up like to a reread to me, you know, because it's a 6 star, I'm going to read it again in December. I don't know if it will hold up to that, right? Because, yeah, because it's, will it still hold up once I know the ending? I don't know. But for a first time through read, this was a 6 star book. It is a 5 on the spice scale. There is trigger warnings for SA from a family member. There is danger banging. There's abuse, dubcon. There is, and I'm not all of that is from the hero, but like there is some dubcon from him. But yeah, there's a lot of other scary things, graphic things in here. So know that. But the way these two as well, like, are forced to spend this time together, and then the more Enzo hears about her backstory and what's happened, he wants to keep holding on to his anger, but, you know, the way that he deals with it and the way it goes was very interesting. So I'll stop now, because I don't want to spoil everything for that one, but I really like it, and I am intrigued to read the Adelaide duet, but I'm nervous, because this just seemed so special and different to me. And I would like to know if someone has read both now. Like, if you read this new one and you've read Haunting Adelaide, like, how much is it similar in the relationship part? Because I've heard that there's like a lot of non-consent in Haunting Adelaide, and a lot of like some icky thing, and by icky things I mean like torture things and stuff, and I don't really love those. So I would just like to know. But I hear people say it's their favorite stalking book. So I don't know. I want to know. And also, like, should it be a duet? Because what I've heard and what I'm nervous about is, like, is there a breakup at the end of the first one? Is that why this is a duet? Because I hate those. You know, like, I want it to be one book, and those are a lot of page. Anyway, I'm done. We're moving on, because I have a lot of other books to talk about, but I'm nervous about it. But I loved this. It was 6 stars. Highly recommend. Next, I read Phase of Fate by Coralie June. And this was a total, like, random find on my own. It popped up in, you should check this out, because I've read other shifter things. And I've read some Coralie June, but I haven't read a ton of her. I read one of hers that was a student teacher, and I read Malice. But I didn't continue with Malice because I don't like reverse harems, and I don't like, but anyway, I don't like polyamory with siblings involved. And so I never read anything else by her. But then these popped up, and they were shifter and like human matches. And this one was really interesting. This is in a world where there are these humans called prodigies who have special gifts, whether that's like mathematical or scientific or musical, and they get paired with a shifter. They will discover that they have this bond. And this shifter is their like protector or a guardian. And so that's supposed to be anything romantic. This isn't like a fated mate thing. But when a prodigy like is identified, there is a shifter who feels a connection with them, and they're whatever. And so we have our heroine, Hallie, and she had a sister who, I can't remember her sister's name. Is it Mona? I don't know. But in the beginning of this book, her sister gets mauled by her guardian, and they don't know why this happened. And then it starts happening more and more and more. And so Hallie, a year later, she like goes to this waterfall to go swimming, and there happen to be some shifters there, and she gets bonded to a shifter. And she doesn't think she has a prodigy gift, and also she doesn't want anything to do with the shifters after what happened to her sister. So it leads into this adventure where she is now bonded to this guy, and she doesn't want to be with him, and he doesn't want to be with her, but like he can't do anything else. Like he has to be with her because he's her bond. So if he's not with her, he'll feel sick, he'll feel agitated, it will be really bad, you know? I'm so sorry. My fucking nose won't stop itching, and I apologize because I know that's weird when someone's itching their nose. But anyway, this is really hard to describe. Also because this is going to be a trilogy. The first two are out. I've just read this one. I do plan to continue because there are some really interesting things that happen at the end. What we're finding out about, you know, is there a way to heal these shifters that have went feral? Because not every one of them who's went feral has killed their prodigy, because now they know what to look for. So if one of these shifters starts turning on their prodigy, they're able to catch them and stop it from, you know, going any further. But there may be a possibility to heal them. We don't know, but we think that Hallie might be the key. So all that's laid out. There we go. However, something that I didn't know when I started this, and I'm actually glad I didn't know, because I gave this book 4 stars. There is romance that's building. I mean, it's obvious who it's going to be. It is going to be her guardian, Theo. So Theo and Hallie. But they're both fighting it. This is a little bit of a rejected maid story, because Theo has always been told that a guardian is not supposed to be with their prodigy. What they don't know is that Hallie is probably a special prodigy, right? I mean, they know she's special, but the rules might not be the same for them. And so he is like rejecting the mating call to her, and that's a bad thing. So we got that brewing. But in this book, there was no spice at all. There was one kiss, and that was it. And if I didn't even check if there was steam in this book or not, because it's Coralie June, and the 2 other books I read by her were full of spice. Like, the spice was there. And this was definitely more new adult. Now, again, I'm glad I didn't know, because though this had no steam, I can see where the steam is going, and I'm here for it. And it was really interesting. You know, I gave it 4 stars. There's no steam. The trigger warning is the death of her sibling and some violence going on. And I'm going to continue. So I don't have too much more to say about this. I'm not saying I 100% recommend, because I'm not done yet. And maybe I won't like how it goes. But I plan to read Phase of Hate is the next one. And I don't know when I'll get to it, but I want to get to it soon. And then the third one doesn't have a release date yet, but she said it'll be by the end of the year. So there's that. Alrighty. Then I read... I had an Audible code for Irish Rogue by Lydia Michaels. Her audiobooks have been released recently, so even though these books have been out for like 5 years, Lydia Michaels is releasing the audiobooks, and I've been snatching them up where I can, because her books aren't in KU, which is totally her choice. Good for her. She made that choice. But that makes her books expensive, you know? Especially when you have to like buy all of them. So some of them have been available on NetGalley, and some of them have been available through Valentine PR. And so I've slowly been reading the McCullough Mountain books that have been available, right? Because I read Beautiful Distraction that way, and now there's Irish Rogue. So this is book 3 in the series, and this book, you guys, really worked for me, and I'm going to tell you it's for a lot of personal reasons that this book worked for me, which happens with her book sometimes. This was like the biggest book of hers I've read. It was 500 plus pages. It was huge. And it really was like the beginning to, I mean, the start of their HA, obviously, but this went through, like, we meet these characters. We meet Ashlyn and Kelly. Ashlyn is our heroine when they're in like grade school, and we go through their first couple years of marriage together, okay? And I love books like this sometimes, okay? I don't want to read them all the time, but this was really like a slice of life, you know, and we're going through all their problems. And again, I'm going to tell you, this is really personal to me. Ashlyn is a Christian. I mean, she's a Catholic, but her faith is very important. And like Kelly, his family's Catholic, but he doesn't take it too seriously. He works in his aunt's bar, who he's a partial owner of, and he's the bad boy. He's the playboy. People have one-night stands with him. He's that kind of man, right? And Ashlyn, she's had a crush on him for 10 years since they were in high school, and his family even jokes with him about it, that she comes in the bar and has dinner alone just so she can stare at him. And her father actually starts encouraging her to date. And so she starts online dating, and she gets online date with actually a friend of the McCullough family, because again, like in McCullough Mountain, a lot of people are McCulloughs. And Kelly finds out that she's going to be going on this date, and now he starts paying attention to her. But the thing about Ashlyn that everyone knows, because they're a nosy ass town, is that Ashlyn is known as being the town virgin, which I mean, it makes my stomach, like, it makes me want to throw up a little bit that that's what it is. But Ashlyn feels that way too. And the way that Lydia Michael addresses stuff like that, like, she's done it again and again, and I'm somehow still surprised when she does it. I don't know why, but I still am. And the way that Ashlyn is, like, she's frustrated by that title, but she's also like, why is it anyone's business? And also, it's important to me that I'm not going to be with anyone that I don't love. And to me, that means that I'm married to the person. And yeah, does divorce happen? Yeah, it does. But I hope I'm smart enough not to just pick someone just because, you know? So these are very important things to her. And her and Kelly actually kind of start up like a friendship, but also he wants to date her, and she's like, I'm not the kind of girl you want to date, because you're not gonna get anything from me. And he's a little offended too, because he's like, do you think the only thing I want is to sleep with you? And she's like, well, yeah, I think that I'm a challenge to you. And he's like, that's so offensive to me that that's the first thing people think. And it's kind of like, yeah, but Kelly, what have you done to displace that view that people have of you? Like, you just let them have that view of you. But what is amazing in this story is that about like 40-50% into the book, after this friendship, after like there's been some kissing, but like he doesn't think he can be a good enough man for her, and she's like, well, I mean, I'm not lowering my standards. I refuse to. And she comes up again and again against other men who are like, oh, well, I just have to tempt her enough and she'll give in. And she's like, I've literally waited all this time now. I'm not going to just give in just because. And I relate to that so much. You know, I've shared that before in here. Like, I feel the same way. And it isn't a fantasy. It isn't a dream. Like, it's a reality for me. And I loved how Lydia Michaels portrayed that, and how she portrays the criticism, and how she portrays Ashlyn's, like, sticking to her guns, as it were, but also just being like, why is it anyone's business? Like, it's not. Like, it's none of your business if I'm choosing to wait. So why is this like a big deal, you know? But about 40 to 50% into this, Kelly realizes that, like, he does want to live up to her expectations, and he proposes to her without them ever having, like, dated. And now I know people will think this is crazy, but I know people in real life this has happened to, and I also have read other romances when I was young where this happened. And I loved that it happened in this one, because they do get married without having dated a ton, and there are a lot of issues they have to work through then. And now they've committed already. So how are they going to work through these things? And I just, guys, it touched me so much. And the very end of this book, because there are really, the only trigger warning in this book is there are fertility issues that come up. Male fertility, actually. Like, I'll put that out there. Like, it's Kelly has infertility issues. And I feel like that isn't touched on enough. And that's a huge deal for him, that he's this very sexual man, and was his identity as a young man, and he's not able to give this to his wife, you know? Oh gosh, it is gut-wrenching, y'all. It's amazing. But at the very end of this book, and I don't consider it a spoiler, but when we're sitting with this couple at the very end of this book, and Kelly's looking at his wife and their child and his family all around him, and he's like, thank God for this quiet, beautiful little church mouse who believed that I could be better, who believed that I could expect something from myself. Because now look what I have. Like, I have a happily ever after when I thought I would just be a barfly for my whole life. And guys, the way that touched my soul, I can't even tell you, okay? So this isn't perfect. This book isn't going to work for anyone. And I know that I just spoke of how she is religious, but it isn't. Lydia Michaels never goes over the top with that. Like, it's clear we see them go to church together. We see, like, marriage counseling bits. But it's done in such this beautiful, natural way that you're like, yeah, people do that. Like, people do that. If you grew up in a church at all, like, you did marriage counseling before you got married, and it was awkward sometimes, like talking about sex with your pastor or like whatever, you know? And I loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. It was fun. So anyway, I talked a lot about that book, but I'm really passionate about it. It was really beautiful. And man, Lydia Michaels does that. That's why I keep going back to this series, because she picks these issues that are everyday small town issues, and they're beautiful. So yeah, trigger warnings, infertility, and I forgot there is an attempted sexual assault that happens not by the hero at a different point. Okay, then I have a couple arcs to talk about. I read Embers by Claire Kent. She is so great at getting her arcs out early. So this one doesn't come out until August 8th, and it's actually on my August TBR, but I was able to read it now, and I devoured it in one sitting, just like I do for all of her books. This one I think is probably her most taboo that she's had, but also because it's dystopian, it doesn't feel taboo to you. But this is between Rachel and Cal, and if you've read other books in the Kindle series, you'll know about this couple and be excited. And if you haven't, and my friend Jesson actually asked me this because she heard the tropes for this, and she was like, girl, I want to read it. And I was like, you don't have to have read the other books. The way that the Kindle series and Last Light works is they're all interconnected, but they actually all like start at the same time. Like, they all start at the beginning of the like event that happens, and then they go through the next few years until all of our characters like meet up at different points in their lives. So you can start the Kindle series anywhere you want. You won't be confused. So if you like the tropes I'm explaining in this one, you can just read this one and then decide if you want to read the others, okay? Enough disclaimer. This one is about Rachel, and she starts I'm just going to say apocalypse. It's not like quite an apocalypse. It's a asteroid hits Earth and makes it like uninhabitable for quite a while, like very dangerous for people. So, and she's with her boyfriend, Derek, I think. They're only 17. His mother has died, her mother has died, and he's sick. He's got it in his lungs, he's coughing, and they don't know what they're going to do. They're getting surrounded by bad guys, which happens in this world. And just as they're about to like be killed or raped in Rachel's case, Cal shows up. Cal is Derek's 40-year-old dad. Like, we think he's about 40. Like, him and the mom had him from a one-night stand, and then Cal actually went to prison for a few years for something, because he was in a biker gang. Let's just say he was in a biker gang when he was young, and he ended up going to prison. And he didn't find out about Derek until he was like 8 or 9 years old, and the mother didn't want anything to do with him. But Cal, for the last few years, has lived close by because he wanted to keep an eye on his son. But he has this small secluded cabin like you need in a dystopian novel, and he just happened to be making his way to try to find his kid to see if he was safe. So Cal rescues Derek and Rachel and brings it back to his cabin, and over the next 9 months, slowly we watch Derek die from what he has. And Derek makes his father promise, and I'm pretty sure the son's name is Derek. I'm just realizing now that I can't remember the kid's name, because the poor kid, like, he dies very soon. So I'm so sorry if I'm saying the wrong name the whole time. I apologize. But he dies, and before he dies, he makes his dad promise to take care of Rachel. And he's like, of course I'm going to take care of Rachel. But Cal is very brusque to Rachel. He's very standoffish, and it's very difficult because they're in a one-room cabin that doesn't have a lot of room. And over the next 4 years, they live together in this cabin, and they go on their trips when they need to. They have pigs and chickens, and they grow things when they can. It's not easy to grow things for the first few years, so they do a lot of scavenging, and he very much keeps a distance between them. They don't talk much. It's very difficult. And around year 3, so when Rachel is like 21, Cal and her start to get closer, and he starts to open up to her a little bit more, and then they have something happen, and he shuts down again. So this is a very frustrating life for Rachel, because she is starting to feel things for him. And Cal, number one, doesn't want to take advantage, which that is all of Claire Kent's men, by the way. They are all this awkward, secluded man, and I love it. I love it so much. It is my catnip. It is my shit. I love it. I adore it. But he doesn't want to feel like he's taking advantage of her or impose himself on someone who would maybe only be placating him because he holds her life in his hands, type of thing, you know? And yeah, so that's kind of the setup. And then, you know, as we go through, like I said, we will run into our people from the other books, and we'll see how Cal and Rachel are able to reconcile the life that they're living with each other, right? But I love this. I freaking love these books. I don't care what anyone else says. I absolutely adore them. So there actually is only the trigger warning to me of the attempted like essay. Otherwise, there isn't. This was a 5-star read for me. It was a 3 on the spice scale. Cal, he's a dirty talking boy. I love it so much. There also is a little aspect in this one of like, it's not sex if I don't put it in, which he's just alluding himself, not anyone else. I love it. So, I mean, the tropes of this are like, it's technically taboo because it's a dead boyfriend's dad, age gap, forced proximity, and kind of an enemies to lover. Rachel's feels like they're enemies because of the way he treats her, but Cal also has a lot of guilt because he's had inappropriate feelings for her since she was there, basically. And he's very much like, no, I'm not going to be that pervert who makes a move on her. You know, like he's very much like, no. So yeah, I loved it. Then I got to read the arc for Zephyr, which comes out the day you're seeing this, I believe. Because yeah, it comes out on the 31st. So this is book 4 in the Immortal Coven series, okay? This series, y'all, it's so good. It's so good. If you haven't started it yet and you love like shifters or paranormal or fantasy, like badass women who are like brutal and tough, but then super possessive men who will like whip that woman into shape. I know it's misogynistic, but I don't care. The men and their mates, like that's how it is. These are fated mates books. And yeah, this is book 4. This one is about Greer, who is part shifter, part air witch. So it's called Zephyr, yeah. And the crazy one about this one, so this is a rejected mate. So it's funny, I've only read like 2 rejected mate books, and I had 2 more in this week actually. But what is going on, like, oh, I don't want to spoil it, but it's set up as a rejected mate. And so I was super nervous that there was cheating in this book, but Amara like had a warning. She actually had it at the back of Inferno, because at the end of each book she'll put like a little snippet of the next book, which very good planning, Amara, you're amazing. She'll have this little snippet there, and she said that there would be no cheating, but like she wasn't explaining how, and like now I know how. So there isn't cheating. But one of the first scenes in this book is that Greer and Alex is an alpha of a shifter coven, or a shifter pack, and they, like, one of the things that is happening in this book is that this coven of witches, who is very much shunned by the regular witches, they are sending representatives to like every different like paranormal faction to try to get support. And because Greer is half shifter, she's sent to them, and her and Greer and Alex, it's clear that they're mates. And so what happens once you find your mate, you start having your heat, you know, you start having that, and it is extremely painful. And if you don't get your mate's, you know, seed, you are in agony for your whole heat. And so the very first time though that they fuck, because he literally can't stay, like they physically can't stay away from each other, he tells her that he already has a mate, and so he isn't going to not her, you know, he isn't going to fully breed her, but they do have sex. And so like an orgasm from your mate helps it like tampen it down, but it doesn't relieve you. And so she is completely broken, but she understands, because a lot of the shifters don't find their mates, so they take like a mate, and so like you can have a mate already, and he tells her he has a mate. And so when her next heat comes around and he comes to fuck her, she just feels so dirty and she feels so horrible that he's come to fuck her and he has a mate. Now, again, there's no cheating in this, and he's not completely telling her the truth. He has a betrothal to have a mate, but he doesn't have a mate yet. But there is a very specific, very serious reason why he lies about that and why he rejects her in that sense. So, I really enjoyed this book. I still enjoy Hydrus and Inferno more. This one probably ties with Lifeblood for me. But whoa, was this one fucking hot and kinky as fuck. Like, let me just say that. Woo! And it is progressing the story amazingly. I will totally tell you that. But it was probably the angstiest one of them all. And yeah, this one was still a 5-star for me. And this was a 4.5 on the spice scale. And now I'm going to tell you some of like the triggers / the content warnings. But Amara does put a good one in the front of every book. She does a great job sharing that. There's blood play in this. There's scarring. There's fucking on top of a dead corpse. You'll understand when you get there. Lots of breeding. Lots of stuffing and licking things, and yeah, it's very spicy. So like, there's a lot of content, and she shares it with you, and woohoo, does she deliver it? Does she deliver it? And the setup for Tareen, which will be with a demon and Cass, is the next, and I think that one is a September release. It's either September or October, but oh my god, am I excited. So that was great. All right, now to get through these last few here. I read Painted Scars by Neva Altaj. I was intrigued to read this. The hero is in a wheelchair, and he's a Bratva pecan, so I was very intrigued. He forces this girl Nina into a marriage with him. His name is Roman, because he needs to prove he's still strong. So he uses some leverage he has over her father to force her into a marriage, and they're only going to be married for 6 months, and then they're going to get a divorce. He is in a wheelchair because he was injured in an accident, and one of his knees was like shattered. So he uses his wheelchair and a crutches or a cane for a little bit, but he is in that the whole time. This is actually kind of a slow burn between them, because they're like pretending to be together for the first bit before they actually like fall for each other. My biggest issues with this is that the ending was very rushed. Like, they did a very good build up for them to be together, and then there's a third act conflict / breakup, and then the forgiveness happened way too quickly. Like, this was only 210 pages. It needed to be another 50, and it was just super rushed through. So I was kind of disappointed, but I plan to continue because I thought that this author did a good job kind of setting some things up. I just think it failed for me a little bit. So this one, yeah, this is an age gap, forced marriage, enemies to lovers, disabled hero. This was a 3.5 for me and a 2 on the spice scale, which I was disappointed it was only a 2. And then, yeah, it was rushed for me. Then I read British Professor by Lydia Michaels. This was one I had bought because this is the one after Irish Rogue, and this one is an age gap. And Alec, I'd actually seen him in Jasper Falls series. Well, I've seen all these people in Jasper Falls, but he helps out one of our characters in there, so I was very interested to read this one. Sheila is one of only 2 of the sisters. Only 2 of the sisters in the series. And she is 24, and she gets blackmailed by her brothers into going to college finally. So Sheila is technically a genius. She has genius level IQ, but she never went to college after school. There's a reason why. You'll have to read it to find out. But now she's going to school, and is she going for psychology or something like that? I can't remember, but she's taking a philosophy class with Dr. Alec Devereaux, and they get in kind of a spat right at the beginning where she is like, he's trying to get her to think outside the box, and she won't do it, and so he gives her a really low grade on a paper, and it pisses her off, and she drops his class because she's like, I will not get a D in this class. And now he was playing a bit of a game with her because he doesn't really fail kids in his philosophy class because everybody has their own philosophy. What he wanted is he wanted her to step outside of being book smart and expand her brain, and she wasn't willing to do that. And so he wasn't actually going to give her like a D in the class, but he gave her a D on this paper because he wanted her to rethink it. She flipped out and just quit, and he was very surprised and disappointed that she would just quit. So he reaches out to her, and they actually end up like having dinner, and he kind of keeps going to these inappropriate places, not like physically with her right away, but he just wants to talk with her. So yeah, he's 40, she's 24. So it's not like a taboo age gap. And once she's dropped his class, because she does drop his class and stay out of it, but he keeps kind of like pursuing her to talk with her, then they have this sexual encounter. And he white fangs her. And it's a bad white fang. Like, it's a bad one because he knows that part of the way she tries to keep people interested in her is to sexually like exploit herself. But he's like nervous about his job, and he has a son who is like 20 who like relies on the scholarship he gets for him being a professor there. And so he gets scared and he doesn't see what he could offer Sheila. So he kind of fucks up that way. But the way he decides to like win her back, I really liked, and I just really enjoyed their intellectual match here, and also the way that he stands up for her when he goes home to McCullough Mountain with her. And I just really thought that was beautiful because nobody really stands up for Sheila. They expect her to be tough enough to handle everything, and underneath she's not. So I gave that one 4 stars, and it was 3 on the spice scale. 2 books left. I read Under Her Skin by Adriana Anders. This book, I had forgot why I had checked it out, but it is on Anyplay FM if you want to listen to it. And the heroine, she has left an abusive relationship where her fucking ex held a gun to her head and tattooed her entire body with his name and with curse words. So I'm just putting that out there. That's why this is called Under Her Skin. She has been forcibly tattooed. There's this very small town where there is a doctor who has like a charity literally where she does tattoo removals for people who have tattoos they don't want. Either they had got them under duress or who'd been forced to have it. So she's at this small town to get these treatments, which are going to take forever and are very painful to have this removed because he didn't just use one color. He used every color, and she is covered everywhere. So she gets this job as this like caretaker person for an agoraphobic woman who's really mean and really cruel, but her next door neighbor is this man named Ivan who's a blacksmith. He's this really tough, big ex-con, and they start up this relationship. And once their relationship starts, he becomes submissive to allow her to like regain her power. And they definitely will switch sometimes, but I'm pretty sure that's why I originally grabbed this book, is because there's never enough books for me where a hero is submissive. So absolutely had a good time with this. This was very dark though and tough to read, so know that. This was a 4-star book for me, and it was a 3.5 on the spice scale. Trigger warnings are domestic abuse, the scarring / forced tattoos, and PTSD. And then the last book that I finished, which I just finished this morning, and is a bit of a letdown to me, unfortunately. I got an arc for The Mafia Monsters Forced Bride by Sam Crescent. I read The Butcher's Wife by Sam Crescent last month, and it was an arc that got put on NetGalley, and I really liked it. And so this one said, I thought it was another Mafia, I mean, it is a Mafia series, but it's going to be a different series by her. And this one is a full-length novel too, which I didn't realize when I asked for it. And this one just like didn't work. This one, we start with this couple who has been together for 4 months already. They were forced into this marriage as an alliance, and the hero didn't believe the heroine was a virgin, and she refused to have the virgin test done to her, which fucking good for her. But because their families are, well, their families aren't fully enemies, they're allies, but the hero like just doesn't trust her, and so they're never together. Like, he fakes her being a virgin on their wedding night. He does a Luca, and he like cuts himself and blah blah blah, and they just barely can stand each other. But now their enemies are coming for them, and they need to really work on them being together. He wants to prove that she's a liar, and so he keeps having his like right-hand people try to like seduce her and trick her, because he wants to find out if she was really a virgin or not, because he doesn't believe her. And so he keeps trying to have people seduce her and she isn't falling for it. And so that was a weird aspect. And then there's another aspect where there's this orphanage that our heroine loves to go to, and particularly one boy that she just absolutely loves there. But there's 15 kids at this place and she wants to adopt them. And I thought it was an interesting aspect to the story. The kids have an interesting part to play, but like adopting 15 kids is a weird choice in a mafia book. Like, I'm all for, like, you guys know how I feel about found family and adopting, but it just was not worked into the story in a good way. And like, what system is gonna let 15 children be adopted by mafia people? And like, it was just very strange. So I don't know, I don't like to give arcs 3 stars. Like, I tend to not do that, so I probably will rate it 4 stars when I turn in the arc. But this one just was not for me. I didn't like how it happened. The hero's secret came out at the worst possible time, which, I mean, of course it does, but like, it was dumb. Like, I'm sorry, this one just crumpled for me and I was really sad. It was also a super slow burn, and it's one of those books where like, they took forever to be having sex, and then they have sex like twice, and then his secret comes out, so then there's no more sex in the rest of the book, and you're just like, wow, you made me wait so long, and then you took it away immediately. So bleh. So okay, I talked for too long. I'm giving that book 3 stars. It has a 3 on the spice scale, and there's a trigger warning for violence. But like, to me, this was really boring. It did not hold my attention the way that the other book by her did. So I was disappointed in that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this. This was one of my very long rambles for only 10 books to talk about, but you know, that's what happens with Jen. Thank you so much for watching. I hope we'll see you participating in the Romance Takeover Readathon, and I will see you later. Bye.